Welcome everyone. My name is Elizabeth Foster. I'm the president of NAWBO New York City. For those of you that don't know, NAWBO is the National Association of Women Business Owners. We are an association that supports women in growing their businesses. We were formed 45 years ago, actually. It's kind of an interesting story for those of you that don't know, that are new to NAWBO. It actually started when a woman business owner could not get a loan without a male family member co-signing. And our great organization was birthed from that frustration. And we actually, in 1988, we actually got a bill passed, HR 50/50, which allows the women to get, because at that point in 75, women couldn't even have credit cards. It was just crazy. So NAWBO is really, really important. The work that we do, we did back then and that we still do today in supporting. We're still advocating. We're still, knocking on the doors of the Hill, lobbying, working at our hardest to get us to have the equal rights that we all deserve. Anyway, so that is enough about NAWBO, and I would like to introduce the amazing Rebecca Gordon. Rebecca and I met, it was quite a few years ago now. I probably should have thought about this beforehand. When did we actually, all I know is that we met, we connected, we kind of fell in love, and we knew that we were soul sisters, and we have just been friends ever since. And apart from being friends, Rebecca is also, she has written for New York Times, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue. You've been on the Dr. Oz show, many other.
Financial Times too.
Financial Times. I did not know the Financial Times. Okay.
Just happened recently, yeah.
Oh, there we go. So that's news for me too. Anyway, so she is an amazing astrologer who really knows what she is talking about. In fact, actually, Rebecca, tell us a little bit about how you got started. And how, tell us a little bit about your history, because I know that you've been involved in astrology for many years.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful introduction. First of all, I can't believe you knew all those things. Yeah, so I will first say I grew up here in New York City, and astrology had always been, well, I will say first, astronomy is something that I was obsessed with, I think, since probably like 4 years old. I was just one of those kids that was into planets and stars and galaxies. And if those of you remember New York in the 80s, it was like the Hayden Planetarium, right? So I would just go there whenever I had the chance. So I guess I was sort of like a science geek growing up. I was just into all of the learning about the solar system. I discovered astrology at age 14. I was babysitting at a neighbor's house, actually, out of all things. And this was an astrologer whose house I was babysitting at. And I saw this title on a book that said, astrology, Linda Goodman, sun signs, Linda Goodman's love signs. If any of you remember those good old classics.
I remember
we all saw the dust-covered Linda Goodman book on some shelf, right?
So, yeah, I actually think I had that book as well, like a gazillion years ago.
Yes, it was such a classic. So I looked at it and I thought, I love astronomy. I wonder what this is all about. It looks kind of like the word astronomy. And, that sort of strange age of 14 where you're sort of like, who am I? Why am I here? All those life questions. And at the time I was simultaneously getting into the I Ching a bit and Carl Jung's work. So it was very syncretic finding that book, I would say, because it really combined the language of psychology, the archetypal language, with the heavens above. And at first I was like, how can this be? How can this one language really extrapolate that as above, so below? And if any of you know me, I have so many planets in Virgo, and I'm a real fact checker at heart. So I was like, okay, is this real? I got to find out first if this is real, because if this is real, and this is my thought, like, if this is real, I'm going to devote everything to it, because this is blowing my mind completely. So I went to the library like a good little Virgo would, and I got all the books out, you know, and just did my research thoroughly. After thorough research, I told the woman whose house I was babysitting, I said, "This is amazing. I want to learn everything. Will you be my teacher?" I was like 14. And she said, "Yes." And then I met Susan Miller and many other mentors down the road, and continued to study, as I still do, as you remain a student forever with astrology. And I think that's the real beauty of it, is that, you know, we're all always students, even though I might call myself a professional astrologer, but I'm still a student of astrology. And I think any astrologer would say the same.
I love it. That's great. And you've been kind of hooked ever since. And I think that I think your family members were into it as well, were they not?
My stepmother, yeah. So, oh yeah. Well, I didn't really finish that story. The woman who was my neighbor, my dad, actually, yeah, I started studying astrology with her, and so then my father met her, and he married her, and then she became my stepmother, and so then my stepmother was my astrology teacher. So everything came full circle, which was pretty amazing. I mean, I was like, yeah, what's better than that? My astrology teacher is now moving in.
That is fantastic. I love that. I didn't realize that part. I knew there was a family connection in there somewhere. I didn't realize it was that. That is so cool. So so you got involved, and you found out more, and you studied and sounds like you're still studying even now. I think that you're right. There's always that part of us which is that perpetual student that really sorry, that's my text that keeps on coming in, and I don't know how to stop it, even though I've turned it off on my computer. But anyway, hey ho. So I know that, and actually, you actually came and did a. This is frustrating. You actually came and did a. You came to Henry Bandel's actually, and you actually did a talk with us there. I do remember very well, and in fact, I think. Now looking back on it, I think actually it was Benjamin, my husband, that actually introduced us. Do you remember? There was at an event that we were at, and he's like, "You two need to meet."
Yes, it was your husband who introduced us. Exactly. Yeah, I remember that now too. Right.
So yeah, so I think that from you know, that beginning, you know, we've kind of come a long way in what we've done, and you certainly have. I mean, the work that you've done and the work that you carry on doing is quite, and I think you have an astrology school now, is that correct?
For 15 years, yeah. We've been running year-round classes. It's a whole curriculum of courses that are, of course, online. And yeah, we have students from all across the globe. We just graduated a class last night, actually. And there were people from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, you know, everywhere. It's truly amazing to bring the world together in this way.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So I know that you know, everybody here is fascinated by astrology in one form or another. I'm sure we've all kind of like looked and certainly right now we're like, well, what's going on in the world and what's happening in the stars, and like it's kind of a little bit crazy in our world right now, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It really is a crazy time. So maybe you can just talk to us a little bit about, you know, how did we actually get to where we are right now? Like this coronavirus, like craziness. Maybe you can like give us a little bit of history as to where did this all come from?
I'd love to. Thank you. And I think you know, something also that I want to say is everything has a birth chart. You know, this COVID has a birth chart. NAWBO has a birth chart that we actually really need to look at, you know, as now it's the 45th birthday of NAWBO. So I just thought
maybe towards the end.
Yeah, let's have one. Okay. Anyway, so this time, one of the great things about astrology is that you can see patterns and cycles, and you can see that there's sort of like a beginning, middle, and end to most things. And you can see certain cycles repeat themselves and when they're going to repeat. So it's really, astrology is about pattern recognition and then translating those patterns to English pretty much, or whatever language you speak. So that's what I've been doing, looking at this time. Now we're in this, we're in this time where basically all of these cycles are sort of converging in this one moment in the eye of a needle right now. I'm going to start. How did we get here? That's such a loaded question because it's really multifactorial, but
Sorry.
we can start. But I want to start with this. For those of you in the room that don't know about astrology too, I want to be able to speak to you. So I would start with saying this. Planets move through signs, and as they move through signs, as the outer planets move through signs, that those are sort of what we call the meta trends of culture. And what they rule political, socioeconomic trends, cultural trends, all sorts of things. So what we're doing is financial trends to emotional trends, all kinds of things that our Earth is governed by. So you all might have heard as above, so below. So right now, one of the big, there's a few big, what we call meta trends that are converging in this one moment. So I'd like to talk about a few of those. One is that we had, during the whole gestation of this COVID, many planets, outer planets, had all gathered in one sign, and that sign is Capricorn. Now, whenever a lot of planets gather together in a sign, you know that something's going down. Like back in the 90s, when all the planets gathered in Aquarius, that was the creation of the internet. You know, Aquarius is the sign of technology, things like that. So right now, we just had a lot of planets gather in the sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn is the sign of stone, castle, the journey up to the top of the mountain. We just happened to have a lot of planets there, which was a tremendous amount of societal pressure building up to this moment. So perhaps all of you were feeling this in your work life, in your relationship life, prior to this breakout, that the sense of, is this really sustainable? Is this life really fulfilling? Is what I'm doing actually, like, what is life really about? And this whole means to an end way and the production beyond its means, which is really an alignment sometimes with the late stages of Capricorn or late stages of capitalism that we're all in right now. So as Saturn reached the last degree of Capricorn and many planets got to the end, nearing the end of Capricorn, we started to see all of the challenges of that sign rise up to the surface. But what astrology also shows us is that after one sign, there's a new sign, right? So we're reaching the critical mass of this stage in Capricorn. And the opposite of Capricorn is the sign of Cancer. Now let's note that when we put too much energy on one side of the seesaw, what happens? There's a correction that happens. And the North Node, which is our due north in astrology, is in the sign of Cancer. So we had, as a society, as a world, there was perhaps an overemphasis on the sign of Capricorn, on the push, on the struggle, on the journey up to the top, without perhaps enough attention to humanity, care, health, each other, things that actually really do matter, that make life livable ultimately. So what happened was a massive correction. Now we're all sort of like, you know, in our homes, we're grounded. This is the sign of Cancer, which is about home, family, connection, care. And we're all, you know, when you get sick, there's always a reason for that. It's because there was probably an imbalance in your life that made you susceptible to that, you know, for some reason. There's always a reason why we get sick. But now the Earth got sick because the inhabitants were unbalanced. We were unbalanced. You know, it shows so much energy in Capricorn and the need to rebalance that in the sign of Cancer. So that's one of the things I'd say, Elizabeth, that led up to this. And for those of you non-astrology listeners, I hope that made sense.
Oh yeah, no, it certainly did. It certainly did make sense, and it's interesting because I'm a Capricorn, so and I'm like, oh wow, I wonder if that's the connection with, but it's just the planet. It's not just me.
Well, we're going to get into that later
Yeah,
today about how it affects all of the signs separately too.
right.
Um, and there's also other metacycles. As I mentioned, there's many cycles collapsing into this one moment in time. There's also Pluto's cycle, which is about almost 250 years cycle. So what happened was in 1776, Pluto was in Capricorn around this time, you know, the time that we basically created a country, broke away from your country, England, you know, we're like, hey, we're Americans, you know, this is America, right? And we did that whole thing. And that was sort of an ending and a beginning, right? And that cycle is also here too. So it's sort of like this relooking at the Constitution, relooking at the Bill of Rights, relooking at the tenets of this country. What are we made up of? What are we here to do? It's not just about America, clearly, but I will say America is going through a massive overhaul. Clearly, this COVID situation is global, but it is changing the framework of capitalism right now as well. And I guess I would also mention that after the sign of Capricorn is Aquarius, which is the sign of the future, technology, innovation, and new ways for us to connect on a global level, which I guess we're starting to do right now already.
Wow, that's fascinating, and it's interesting how you bring in the different dates, and you can see, it seems like you can see really clearly. You're like, okay, this is happening at this time because of this planetary, whatever's happening in those planets. I'm not an astrologer, as you can tell. I don't really know a lot about it, apart from I have a lot of Earth. That's what I do know. And then there's all the different things that are going on as well. So we're in it right now, and so I would just say, you know, what, like, because people are saying, how long do we have to stay inside for? And people are just going a little, like, you know, cabin fever crazy. So tell us. We understand that we're just coming into it. We understand that there's a lot happening in Capricorn right now. So tell us a little bit about how we bring, you know, where is the end? I mean, you know, how do we get here? But also, what is the end of this? Because that's really paramount to us right now. Because a lot of us are feeling that that tension and that stress. So how does that work?
Sure. Well, before we talk about the end, I would just mention that all of us are very we're extremely connected, right? And this is a real shift of values that's happening, that's needing to happen. It's less about when is my favorite restaurant going to open again? When am I going to go back to my old life? It's more about how am I going to change my life right now? And what am I going to change in my life? And so there is a lot of fear in that because we don't yet know what this new will be. But it's just, there are really two mindsets to glom onto right now. And of course, one is fear and the other is love and trust. So we all have a choice now as well. But we could be sorely disappointed if we just keep saying, when are things going to go back? You know, when is this going to be over? And when are we going to go back to the same old thing? Because, right, we're not going back to the same old thing, essentially, first of all. And this will change the world in significant ways. So I just want to say that too. And I don't mean to, I hope that doesn't sound scary or anything, because we do have to be open and agile more than anything right now. And in pivoting our businesses as entrepreneurs, especially because, and thinking about our role on the planet differently. And this is the key thing. There was a certain way, I'm guilty of this too, and maybe many of us are in the room, of running our businesses and doing things that actually are not really healthy and sustainable for the long run. And maybe they don't benefit everyone as much as they could. So the question is, how can we be more inclusive? How can we all be more humanitarian and see us as part of the unified field? And nature got sick. We're a part of nature. We're getting sick too, right? This is a time of healing and a need for reprieve. So I would say that as far as like the when it's going to be over thing, astrology does show patterns and cycles. And of course, things do, what I'm looking at when I see COVID and the gestation of it, I saw Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter all together in Capricorn. And I thought, okay, this is certainly a Capricorn symptom, a symptom of pushing ourselves. Now, I also feel that collectively, if we continue to try to push ourselves and do the same things we've always been doing, we're not going to heal this as fast as we could. We're having to collectively change tact, change our approach to life, change values in a sense as well. April 4th, which is tomorrow, I'll say, Jupiter and Pluto come together. Now, that's going to happen intermittently throughout the year. As that does, as those two planets come together, they are giving way to two things. One will be the potential for medical miracles and solutions. Okay. And the other thing will be the potential for something negative to spread a lot. And they're both happening together. So the glow around tomorrow, literally, like plus or minus a couple weeks, is a significant time. You know, it's sort of the eye of the needle there. And we're going to have a couple of those throughout the year. So I ultimately, like, certainly we can go through some sort of clearing of this when the weather gets warmer and things. I think that a lot can clear up as the sun starts to come out, because Capricorn is symbolic of cold, dry spaces. And this illness thrives in very cold spaces. What it does not like is light. When there's warmth and light, it does not live as long. It does not live as much. So, I mean, that's just, everybody should be taking vitamin D. Everybody should be simulating sun energy in their life as much as possible. That's, you know, eating foods that are warming, things like that. Warm liquids throughout the day. That's very important too during this time. So I would say we want to be mindful for about a year, just because there could be intermittent, not to say it's going to come back all big and strong like it is now, but, you know, there could be little breakouts here and there throughout the year. So even though I think June 21st is an important date, because that's the first time we're seeing a solar eclipse in the opposite sign of Cancer, where is like the place that's so deeply in need of energy right now, and where we're all being forced to. And for all of you that are listening that are, I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the room right now. It's not about going back to our old ways of doing things. It's about changing tact, changing the way that we approach our businesses and our lives right now. When this solar eclipse happens on June 21st, I could see after that things really clearing up quite a bit. Not to say they will completely, because there can always be little outbreaks here and there. And I'd say to stay on strong immunity, like a high grade vitamin C, immunity mushrooms and things like that. Just make them a part of your daily regimen throughout the year, just to be on the safe side. It might not, yeah, so that's essentially what I'm seeing. And it's kind of based on the Jupiter Pluto cycle, things like that. And overall, like, yeah, when it gets warmer, I'm seeing some relief.
Great.
Around June 21st.
And it's interesting, you know, you started off answering that question by life will never go back to what it was. And I think there's a lot of people that have actually come from the place of, you know, well, actually we wanted that life, but actually we know that life was not actually sustainable. What we were doing is just using and abusing in one format of another, whether it was, you know, whether it was what we were, the amount of things that we were spending money on and what we were buying. And there was, you know, to global warming and many, many things. It reminds me of, and absolutely there's that level of us, we need to make a change. And we need to change in ourselves, and we need to change our society, and we need to change our world for us to carry on and be sustainable. And it reminds me of Donna's actually here, who's one of my old teachers. We did the Jungian shadow training with Debbie Ford together. And one thing that I remember very clearly is like, what you resist persists. So when we're in that place of resisting and resisting and resisting, it's just not, it's not helpful to us. It's not going to feed us. It's not going to support our life, basically. But when we can actually, when we can go into that place of, you know what, change has to happen, whether you like it or not, that change absolutely has to happen. And so when we step into that place of, okay, what do I need to embrace now? What new technology do I need to embrace? What do I need to learn? What do I need to, you know, there's all these different things that the changes that we need to make in our everyday lives, so that we can truly, so that it doesn't keep persisting. Because as you say, Mother Nature, you know, our world is sick and we're part of that. So I love the way you think. It's very much in alignment with me and who I am as well. And hopefully the listeners will also be resonating with that as well. So I'd like to really kind of look into, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people on this call that'll be saying like, well, what does this mean for me? And what does this mean for my sign? And what does this mean for everything else? So what I'd love to maybe just ask you to do, if that's okay, is just to go through the 12 signs, go through the planets, and actually start to look at what we can do to feed ourselves, what we can do to support ourselves, what can we do to really help going into that place of you know, surrender in a way, and openness, and, you know, bringing the good things into our lives that we need, and to heal our planet. So maybe I can ask you, I think you might have something that you can share with us on the screen so everyone will be able to see, and maybe we can go through those 12 signs.
I would love to.
Thank you.
Yeah. So also welcome all your questions in the chat if you want to write things, and we could, I might get to some of them at the end as well. So feel free to share those as well. And yeah, exactly as you said, Elizabeth, that it's nature. It's realigning ourselves to nature. And what will that look like? What will, clearly there was, you know, with the environment, so many ways that we've created unsustainable relationships to nature. And really, since Pluto has been in Capricorn the past few hundred years, so we're having to, this has never happened. Well, it hasn't happened in a very long time, with so much of the solar system and Earth signs, that's truly forcing us to realign ourselves with the planet and what the planet needs, not what we need, but to listen more. And also Neptune is in a water sign. So everything is really in earth and water, asking us to realign in that way. I'm going to share my screen right now with you, where it's some astrology charts. And I'm going to traditionally begin with Aries, as we do, and go through the signs. Can you all see my screen by chance? If you can, just write yes in the chat. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so right now I'm just going to start with Aries, and these are just some things to be aware of for, I would say, the next 6 months overall, and some for the next year or two. But Saturn just moved into Aquarius, and it will be there until until July, and then it moves back into Capricorn for a bit. So I'm going to talk about what this Jupiter in Capricorn, Saturn Aquarius means for all of you, which is, I also might bring in Uranus and Pluto too. We'll start with Aries. Who are my Aries in the room? You can write the word Aries in the chat right now. Let me know who you are. What are we focusing on, Aries? Well, okay, interestingly, you have the planet of luck at the top of your chart in the sector that rules your career, your vocation, your path. This is actually an amazing time, like probably the best time out of this whole 12-year cycle for you to rethink your business, your industry, and what you share with the world. Your luck Jupiter is truly at the top of your chart, what you share, how you share. You are in the most advantageous space to pivot and to reinvent your career life. Do this quite well. I would also say that it is very much about, I want you to listen if you're an Aries or Aries rising. Aries or Aries, for all of these, your sun and rising. Also, you will need to perhaps limit and be mindful of who you connect to socially. You might cut certain people out of your life that are not really feeding you, that are bringing you down. It's important to recognize that and really cultivate a circle of high vibe people that make you feel amazing too. So that's a wonderful chart for Aries actually this year. And especially these are things you can do as entrepreneurs in quarantine, new ways to reinvent your work life, which is a major topic now. And we can talk about that more too if you have questions about that. I love the topic of pivot, and I host an Astrology for Entrepreneurs group where we're always talking. We do case studies of people in the group, often talk about how to pivot and most any kind of business to be sort of quarantine friendly or COVID friendly, things like that. Okay, so I want to see who are my Taurians in the room. Write Taurus in the chat if you are a Taurus or Taurus rising. So what's looking up for you this year, Taurus, is the fact that Jupiter, planet of luck, is in your 9th house that rules education and learning. This is an amazing year, not only to learn new skills, but also to teach them and to learn new forms of media, teaching, communication. Perhaps you write a book this year, you publish, you broadcast. It's wonderful for communication on the mass scale. Do I have any Taurians that are writing now and things like that? Taurians who are teaching, bringing your teachings online. My brother's actually Taurus, and he created a sort of online video education network, and it just blew up right now. Like before it was like not that popular. Now it was somewhat, but now it's just, so Taurians can do very well with this. And as far as bringing your message to the world, and Saturn's in your 10th house, really stepping into a place of more visibility. And with all of these things, I want you all to think about ways and tiers and how this can also benefit everyone, not just a select few. And there's always a way to do this with any business. Okay, so that's sort of what I would challenge you all. Okay, great. I see people in the chat saying the Taurus husbands are teaching online. That's great. Let's talk about Gemini. Who are my Geminis here? Write Gemini in the chat if you are a Gemini in the room. Okay, so you have the planet of luck, Jupiter, in your 8th house. Geminis here are actually doing this, I think, enjoying this process of self-exploration, of inner exploration. This is your time to really dive deep and break through your fears and understand your fears, those perceived glass ceilings as well financially too. New ways to look at money. There might have been old lineage patterns and ways of seeing your finances, and you're actually extracting yourself from those stories right now. That's very exciting. You're going to step into a new financial paradigm through this too, where you can help others as well. Okay, that's what we see for Gemini. All right, I'm gonna say, Francine, glad that made sense for you. Let's see, who are my Cancerians in the room? Write the word Cancer if you're a Cancerian, Cancer or Cancer rising. Good, hi, welcome. You have Jupiter in your house of partnership right now. So through this time, whether it's business or love, it is all about partnerships. And I personally feel that partnerships are the bedrock of everything in life. Like, it's just, business is based on relationships. Everything is based on relationships. Relationships are hands down the most important thing. I feel that, at least. The whole world runs on the way we build relationships. So your focus this year, Cancer, is about relationships. If you are married, perhaps you renew your vows, you really connect on a deeper level. You peel all the layers and you see what's under the rug and you become closer than ever. And perhaps also, if things aren't going well, it's a year to separate, and that might be a great thing too. But it overall looks so positive in relationships. Business partnerships, especially for you, collaborate with others, connect. Like, that area is amazing for the next year. Well, especially until December. So let's see, who are my Cancerians? Yeah, you also might meet somebody new and partner up with them. You might meet somebody on an app right now, yeah, or like at a social distancing at the grocery store, right? All those things, you know. Okay. But also, like, if you're a Cancer or a Capricorn, wow, is it a year for you? Because the eclipses are in the signs of Cancer and Capricorn. So your life is changing perhaps more dramatically than anyone else in the room right now. And I think if you do have Cancer or Capricorn friends, definitely reach out to them, see how they're doing. Know that June and July is also going to be a big pivotal point for both of these signs as well. Okay, my Leos in the room. Who are you, Leo? Right, Leo in the chat, if you're Leo. Leo's here, Leos and Leo risings. Such a creative, bright sign. I hope you're staying creative in your quarantine too. This is a year to focus on health for you, and that's actually the best part of your chart right now. Physical health, getting into routines, getting into better routines, getting into better sleep patterns, understanding what you need to eliminate from your diet, understanding habit stacking and how to create habits and patterns and rituals that will ultimately give you so much more time, freedom, and a sense of wellness. This is for Leos and Leo rising. So the focus is absolutely on health. This is the year when you build the patterns that will maintain through your life. Wow, that's a lot, Leo. So Leo can tend to be a more creative, extroverted sign. This is actually a year to shift the gaze and go more inwards to focus on your biorhythms more and what your body actually really, what needs to thrive. Okay. All right. Who are my Virgos in the room? Right, Virgo in the chat if you're a Virgo. Okay. Virgos here in the house. Virgo sun, Virgo rising. Now, we're going to see you have Jupiter in your 5th house, which rules love, romance, creativity. So Virgos, this is about, this is actually a wonderful year for love and romance for you. You may fall in love this year. You might meet somebody in your quarantine. This is a very creative year for you too, where you want to carve out time to focus on the things that you never had time to back in the old world. You know, all those things that were like, oh, when I have time, I'm going to do that. When I have time, I'm going to do this. This is the time. Quarantine, where the North Node is in Cancer, we're all grounded. We're being forced to do these things right now. All the things that we said we never had time to do. And this goes for all the signs. Indulge in that. Like, we want to stop trying to go back to the old way. Instead, take up everything you dreamed of right now when you can. It's truly, it can be very revelatory for that. So creative, also fertility as well. Okay. And you can all ask your questions in the chat too. Who are my Libras? Write Libra in the chat if you are a Libra listening right now. We're going to talk about you, Libra. So you have Jupiter in the house of home, Saturn in the 5th, showing that something you're working on your relationship. Your relationship is a place where the work you put in now will pay off later. There are things to work out in the area of love. However, and I'm saying it pays off too because you have Jupiter in the house of home. It could be a wonderful time to reconnect with family and build stronger bonds than ever with your family. And you'll realize parts of them you never knew perhaps in your own immediate family and also ancestral too. Even it's a good year for real estate for you and all matters home related. Also, so Libras, let's see who. Okay, Libras and Libra risings, of course. Yeah, you'll find, I mean, I guess we're all sort of doing everything around the home right now. So we're all sort of honorary Libras at the moment. Though it really feels like this, you can build bridges and with family, things that you've never been able to do previously in ways. Okay, Scorpios. Hello, Scorpio. Who are you here? Scorpios and Scorpio risings. Write the word Scorpio in the chat. Let me see who you are. Okay, for Scorpios, this is going to be a time where your mind, your ideas will take front and centerpiece in the middle of the living room. I'd like to see you actually value your ideas more, value your thoughts, your intimations, write them down. This is a wonderful time for you to begin writing more, to create content, whether it's written or video, and perhaps you create course content. You'll do very well in the areas of networking, which is not something that your sign is particularly known for naturally, but not that it's just saying maybe you don't love it, but you understand it. This is a time where you can network very well online and meet the people and collaborate with the people and build the partnerships you've always wanted to. It's very good for networking, learning new skills, content creation. What are my Scorpios doing here? Does that make sense for you? There's a lot of Scorpios here in the room, so I'm wondering. But this feels like, meanwhile, there are some important decisions you might have to make regarding your home and family too. So how can your information access a wider audience? It's Jupiter in your third house. It's how can, yeah. So I see Donna saying creating a new workshop on communication. Well, you can't get any more on point than that for Jupiter in your third. Creating a workshop on communication. Donna, that's amazing. Great. So we're also going to see Jupiter's in the second house for Sagittarians. Write the word Sagittarius in the chat if you're a Sag. Sag or Sag rising. So actually Sag has a really strong year for business. And it's not going to be exactly, again, the old way of doing things. When you have Jupiter in your second house, you have, in a way, like I see it as crops that you can cultivate. And you have talents that haven't yet seen the light of day, that want to. So there's these things that you are quite good at that the world doesn't really know about right now. And I would challenge you to take those out of your home and into the world, into the internet. There might have been something you've been working at for a long time. You might turn that into a business this year. It's a great year to do that. You will actually increase your confidence in doing this. You will increase your skill sets, and also inherently you will increase your income too. It's a great sort of enterprising year for you, Sagittarius. Okay. So Capricorn, oh my gosh, Capricorn, how are you all doing first? I have to ask you that. I mean, because you all must have been getting hit hard by Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. Are you all alive? Are you doing okay? You're doing well. That's great. Okay, love to hear that. Another person says challenging, another Capricorn. Yeah. So these, it depends on what your birthday is in Capricorn, because some of you, the planets have already hit, some they haven't yet. Depends where in Capricorn you're at. Though what we're going to see here is that Capricorn, first of all, also you have Jupiter in your sign this year. So you can think about what happened 12 years ago. You can remember like 2008. How was that year for you? I bet there were some wonderful things that happened that year when Jupiter was in your sign too. Jupiter's in your sign. This is essentially a very lucky year for you, despite what the world is going through, because with all of the solar system in the sign of Capricorn, this is your time to really stand up in a way that you never have before. Your values seem to be changing, and you're changing a lot right now. And as you do, it seems that a new voice rises up within you. It's okay to allow old ways to fall off as you do sort of reinvent yourself this year. This is a true rebirth, regeneration year for you. And it's probably your best time to launch something new, something brand new into the world. You can think about 2008. And although that was such a financial downturn for the world, I'm betting there was something wonderful happening in your life meanwhile, too. Does that make sense for you, Capricorns? Cora says, it's like you're reading my diary. Okay, so I see people in the chat are interested in my Astrology for Entrepreneurs workshop. We just ran that, actually. We just had a final class that ended tonight, but maybe I'll create another one. And if you sign up for my list, you will get access. I'll just write my URL there so you can, in the chat, so you can sign up, because people have to jump off right now, I know. So RebeccaGordonAstrology.com. So there, you can, oh, I think that went privately to NAWBO. Hold on one second. Can we?
It's okay, Rebecca, I'll do it for you.
Thank you so much, because yeah, people are asking about these classes and things. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, so Capricorn, yeah, I mean, Elizabeth, you're a Capricorn. How are you doing?
It's definitely been an interesting year so far. I mean, you know, obviously January birthday, and wow, my feet haven't kind of touched the ground. But it's interesting you talk about you know, starting a new business, because that's kind of what I'm looking at, a pivot, and I'm looking at that as well. So that's very exciting news for me.
Great. Yeah, it's actually probably your most, sometimes in astrology you can jump and there's such a great net and everything is supportive, and other times you can jump and it's bleak. Now it's actually a wonderful time to jump and take a risk for Capricorn while Jupiter's in your sign. That only happens once every 12 years. So it's good. Okay. Now, April, so we're looking at the next sign of Aquarius. No, Saturn's just moving into Aquarius slowly. Jupiter's in your 12th house. Aquarians are actually, they've had a bit of a tough past 2.5 years or 2 years. It might have been quite challenging. In some ways, as Saturn was moving through your 12th house, you might have been having to face all these things in your subconscious mind. However, you have Jupiter in your 12th this year. With Jupiter in your 12th, this is a year where it's more so focused on your inner world, your spiritual practice, and deep healing within. As this happens, there's a sense of wonderful, there's a sense of respite and healing and a realignment. And also Saturn enters your sign, which means commitment, Aquarius. What are you committing to? The things that you decide on this year and next year, you might be in for a very long time. Saturn just entered your sign. This happens once every 29 years. So you can, if you're old enough, you can think what happened 29 years ago. This is a significant time for perhaps you move into a new home, you get married, you know, there's major life events, or there's a business you commit to. There's just a sense of gravitas that things will have this year for you. And I would say the time is most well spent in your practice of meditation right now. I mean, I guess for everybody right now in the world, you know, one, we don't have all of the distractions of life outside of the home. What you do have is your mind and your heart. That's all you have right now, essentially, and the great people around you, too, that you can talk with. So it's a time to really cultivate your quality of mind. I mean, this goes for everybody, not just Aquarians right now. Cultivating that through a meditation practice, through breathing practice, just focusing on your breath simply every day, even if you've never meditated before. Start with just 5 minutes even. And this can make a world of difference, especially if you're feeling anxiety or panic during this. I know I just took some time off yesterday to meditate, and it was a complete game changer, because I had skipped like almost a week, and I'm just getting back into it now after that time was missed, and I'm like, wow, what was I missing? You know, so it's really key for everyone now. And also make sure you laugh, make sure you connect to people that make you laugh and joke and have fun too, right? This is about mental health, a big focus on that for Aquarians too. Okay, last sign of the zodiac here. We are looking at Pisces. Who are my Pisces and Pisces rising? All right, Pisces, Pisces rising. You have Jupiter in your house of friendships. This is about, the year is truly going to be about cultivating wonderful friendships and alliances. Not only that, not just friends, like people that you meet for brunch or whatever, like obviously we're not doing that now, but this is what I'm actually referring to, people whose values are in alignment with yours, people that have a similar worldview and want the same things for humanity as you, the kind of friends that share a vision with you, like those sort of soulmate friends that you feel your souls are working towards the same vision of the future together. This is a year where you cultivate those kinds of friendships and build relationships, build online communities. You'll do very well with that, Pisces. And I think you're making connections that you're going to have for a lifetime. Meanwhile, Saturn's in your 12th house. So you are doing the digging, you're doing the clearing out of limiting beliefs from the past as Saturn is moving through your 12th house. Essentially, you've got that like flashlight on in the basement and you've got to see all the like ghosts and monsters and things down there, clearing them out, putting a light on the shadows. And you're doing it. You're doing a great job of that too this year. Saturn just moved into your 12th house recently. It's going to be there for a while. And I will say that it just looks, for all signs of the zodiac, you want to imagine not what you would have done with this 2 months ago, but actually how can you use this information that I'm giving you into a way and use it in a way that benefits the all as well, that is inclusive, not just for a select few. And certainly, you know, you can have different tiers and different ways of managing your business. But for all of the entrepreneurs listening, I think this, no matter what your business is, there's a part of it that will need to pivot as we enter this new paradigm as well. So it's, I hope this has been helpful going through the signs. Any questions? And Elizabeth, did you want to add anything to that too?